Hi, I'm Ethan Hutchins, the Public Information Coordinator for the Broken Arrow Police Department, here with our third edition of BAPD On Air, and today we are joined by our new chief, Lance Arnold. Thank you for being here today.
Absolutely, 30 days in, so the newness hasn't worn off yet, but yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is a fantastic space.
Yeah, Captain Josh McCoy here with me to kind of interview you and kind of ask the questions that our community wants to know about you being here in Broken Arrow. So let's just kind of start off by talking about you and kind of how you got here.
Well, thanks, Ethan. First, one of the things that we've started since I've been here, when we start any kind of meeting, I like to start off with wins. It puts us in a positive frame of mind. It really kind of changes that dynamic. Meetings, people nowadays especially, right, they hear about, we got to call this meeting, and they think it's just going to be bad news or these challenges we're facing or whatever. And when you can start a meeting off with wins, it changes the whole mind frame. It gets to that yes that we hear Mr. Spurgeon talking about sometimes, right? So I'm going to pitch that back to you, and or you, Captain McCoy, tell me a win that you've had for the last week or so.
Well, and I can speak to this, being in some of these meetings, and this is how we kick things off, and it has been awesome. It's a boost of morale, and you kind of see as we go around the room, whatever the setting is, leadership, whatever it ends up being. So a win for me would be highlighting Tricia Cook, who's our real-time information center manager, and the work that she's been doing in that space and that center over the last few months. But here recently we had some burglaries that occurred around Main Street where she coordinated with patrol and was able to get them information, video footage. It's been really cool to see her excel and take off in that role and what she's been doing. And then also she was an internal applicant. So it was somebody that was in our organization that had this talent, this skill set that we really didn't know about until she came and sat down and interviewed, and has just created this space where we've been very fortunate to have someone like her, but then to have the product that we're building out of that. So that's a win for me to get to see that with her.
Yeah, I'll tell you too, and I've heard several times on the way into work or driving to a meeting or something like that, our dispatch center put out something that came from Arctic, that came from Trish, and she's, gotten a hit on a stolen vehicle or whatever the case is. And I've got a funny story I'm going to come back to, but I got to get your win first. But I got to tell on myself a little bit the first time that I heard it come out. So, Ethan, what's your win?
I think my win naturally is this space, because we've done 2 episodes. This is our third, and for me, coming from a news background, to be able to do this kind of interview style is just very neat, because you're able to utilize this technology to get to know officers more and to get to tell our community about our department and even your background and being able to show thousands of people with one video who you are. So for me, this space has been, at least in my opinion, a success, and we have so much more discussions to have inside here. So for me, that's been a big win.
Yeah, and I heard from a previous podcast that we are the first in Oklahoma to do this, the first police department in Oklahoma. Is that right?
Yeah, we looked around and we would see. So there are some other people that are doing some audio type podcasts, but to have the video going, everything that we have, this type of center, a lot of this comes from these other agencies with collaboration through schools, universities, which is awesome. We're just very fortunate that we have this space in-house that we put together, and we're hoping we see more people do this.
Right.
And for sure, the first one with audio and video in the state.
That's awesome. Well, and I've heard, just in sitting with meetings with you guys, the ideas that you all have had and continue to kind of flesh out of what we're going to do in this space. I'm excited about that. So I'll do my win. I have a lot of wins. I could probably spend the entire podcast, and you guys don't want that per se with wins, but just continue to be blown away by the talent, the commitment that we have in this organization at the sworn level professional staff. You mentioned Tricia Cook in Arctic, the Real-Time Information Center. But really, I had a meeting today with our animal control and our animal shelter staff, and sometimes those are those unsung, like we're here and the officers in uniforms and badges, but the work that they do and the commitment that they have to serve this community, to serve the animals of the community and the shelter and our own officers and the police department as a whole. So really just seeing all the different units that we have, but just incredibly talented across the board, and it's been so exciting for me. I've mentioned to several people, I can't wait every morning to get to work because I'm learning new stuff, meeting new people, and that's been a really incredible time for me. On a personal level, it was really important for Mr. Spurgeon for the next police chief to live inside the city limits, and so recently closed on the purchase of our house in Broken Arrow, and so that's a great time as well. I mean, that really. I understand exactly why Mr. Spurgeon wanted that with just the engagement piece and feeling like you're really a member of this community. And the community has been fantastic. They're so welcoming, and we continue. You guys are programming events. The city is programming events, and just that opportunity. But people have been coming up to me, and then the thing we normally get in Broken Arrow that you guys have seen time and time again, but just being out in uniform and people thanking us for our service. And so just an incredible place. Now, my story, I'll tell it quickly, but so I have heard these hits. We're getting information from Arctic, and it's real-time information, and that's an incredible tool for us, to prevent crimes from happening, to continue to be one of the safest places to live and work and raise a family in the state and the region. And so I'm on my way out to the training center, and I hear dispatch put out a hit on a stolen vehicle, right? And I was kind of thinking about, I was going to meet with the special operations team. I was thinking about what I was going to say in front of the group and all that. So I'm really not paying attention. And I have a radio in my vehicle, and I hear it, and then I'm thinking, I didn't hear the vehicle description. And so I'm thinking, should I ask what the vehicle description was? And then I feel like a rookie officer all over again. I'm like, I'm going to sound kind of silly if I ask, can you repeat that or whatever? And then I'm thinking, but then I'm going to be even more silly if I drive past the dang thing. And then we've got marching units coming, and they're like, well, the chief drove right past the stolen vehicle, or whatever. And so I wrestled with this whole thing. I ended up finally, one, I didn't see it, but two, there was a little bit of a delay on it. But I thought I've got to be better at doing this, and that's one of the things I've talked about patrol and just had a meeting yesterday with Deputy Chief Scott Bennett. Kind of one of the impetus for this, what we're doing now. But he's super excited to get back in patrol. He's working on his rig. You guys know Scott, so he's working on his rig and all that kind of stuff. He's already making plans with who he's going to ride with. But that's one of our initiatives that we're doing really inside too is, if you're not in patrol, but that's the basis of everything that we do in uniform patrol. And so we have a lot of great assignments, and we have a lot of specialties that really enhance our ability and our capacity as a department. But at the basis of what we do is uniform patrol. And so I think I'm excited to get out there and start doing that as well. So that's my funny story of like the rookie patrol cop mistake, right? I didn't hear what was happening, wasn't sure if I should ask for them to repeat it or not, and then just decided to just drive on and hope I didn't see anything or get accused later of driving by it. So,
well, in your defense, I mean, you've been at a couple different agencies, and probably most people don't know that not all police officers, not all police agencies use the exact same lingo or sound exactly the same on the radio. So there is this kind of learning curve to anyone who steps into a new organization to learn exactly, hey, how do these people use this radio? Yeah. How do they sound? What are they saying? So yeah, it wouldn't completely be your fault if a stolen car went driving by and they were talking about it, because we might say something a little bit differently, use a different tune code than what you're used to. Like I said, coming from a few different agencies, but that is a funny story.
I know you have a lot of missions and goals that you want to implement here as chief, but before we get into that, let's talk about your background and kind of where you came from and why you came to Broken Arrow.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that, and I'll tell you, I have told people this too. I really feel like the path that I've had was really all to build up to this. I mean, this is my Super Bowl, and I really truly do feel that. But it's hard for me to kind of talk about who I am or where I came from if I just don't talk about like where I grew up. And so I grew up in a really small town in Northeast Texas, New Boston, Texas. My joke is that it's right between Boston and Old Boston, and that is actually a true story, by the way. There's Boston and Old Boston and New Boston, not very big. But I grew up in that Northeast Texas, but kind of influenced by, we were 30 minutes away from Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana, and that four kind of states area. And so that's kind of where I grew up, and then decided to go to college. First one in my family to do so. I grew up watching on Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, I grew up watching OU football play Nebraska. And I didn't know anything about OU other than watching that game as a little kid, and decided that that's where I wanted to go. Now, my mom and dad actually met in Midwest City, My dad was stationed in the Air Force, and my mom graduated from Midwest City High School right outside of Oklahoma City. And so we had family in Oklahoma, and that's an important piece of all of this kind of coming back home too. And so and we still do have a lot of family in Oklahoma. So I went to the University of Oklahoma, and like a lot of people, I think when they start off college, from my early childhood, I wanted to be a police officer. But I thought, man, I'm gonna go to college and I'm gonna get this job that pays a lot of money, right? And so, and I remember kind of going through that. I was a public relations major, and at the journalism school at the University of Oklahoma, and a guy walks in, he says, "Yeah, we just hired 2 OU PR grads, and we're paying them $18,000 a year." And I was like, well, maybe I should think about a different career. And I'm really not the computer science, information technology, or engineering side. None of that really appealed to me. But a reflective moment that set the trajectory of the rest of my life was this moment to say, I need to do something I'm really passionate about and that I believe is why I'm here, what my purpose is. And so I got into policing. And don't mind saying, at the time that I got into policing, I didn't know the difference between quality of one agency versus another, the difference between a municipal police department versus a county sheriff's department or any of that kind of stuff. But I was living in Norman, and so I got on with the Norman Police Department and spent 20 years there and had just a fantastic opportunity to try a lot of different things. Everything from your classic patrol officer, patrol supervisor, worked in the traffic enforcement unit, worked in training, both as a recruiter and the training academy commandant. One of the assignments, I mentioned animal welfare this morning, or animal control in the shelter, but as a captain, I was over our animal welfare unit and was the first kind of sworn captain to do that, and took it over really with a lot of challenges in the community and some things that were going on in a remodel of the shelter and some bad press at the time, and some things like that were really just happening. And at the same time that I did that, I was also the SWAT team commander. And I had spent a lot of my career on the SWAT team, came up as an entry member into being a sniper team lead. And then when I promoted to captain, there's only one captain over the team. I came off of the SWAT team. But then when my predecessor retired from the department, I was appointed as the captain of the team. So that, the duality of really those things of this SWAT commander, but at the same time I'm running the animal shelter, but really gave me that appreciation that I have now for our professional staff and the talent that they bring and the fact that we absolutely have to have them as part of our organization and the value that they bring to the organization and to the community at large, And so that was the kind of the story of Norman. And then along the way, I knew I wanted to be a chief. And I knew at the time that there wasn't going to be something open in Norman. And part of me too was just kind of a little desire to get back to Texas and try that. Now my wife, who I've been married to for 27 years, born and raised in Norman, and didn't like a lot about anything to do with Texas, quite honestly.
Oh no!
And so I say that really that move, and it highlights too, our relationship and the belief that she had in me to make that move. She had really never been that far away from her parents, really never strayed to another state or any of that other kind of stuff. And so that was a big commitment from her. We had two, both of our boys that we have, one was going into Logan, the oldest was going into the 10th grade. The other one, Ethan, was going into the 7th grade. And that's for me to walk in and say, hey, what do you think about going and trying to get a job in Texas or getting this job? And she'll tell you, when I put in for the job in Weatherford, Texas, right outside of Fort Worth, I was looking for a community that, and why this is important is because it really is a description of Broken Arrow. But I was looking for a community that was conservative, but not too far, just a little bit more conservative leaning, but it also had a faith-based component to it that supported public safety and policing, and that was progressive, that was growing, and that's kind of what I was looking for. And if you know about Norman, and this is not a knock on Norman, but Norman's in a lot of ways is opposite of some of those things. And so I was looking for just some of that stability that comes along with that. And Weatherford was really a great place for us to go. And so, but when I was interviewing for that and going on site and stuff like that, she went along with me, but she would tell you if she was here that she didn't really think I had a chance of getting it. So she was kind of fine. She's like, yeah, you go play like you want to do that or whatever. Well, then I get the call that they want to hire me. And, the blood drains from her body at that point, because she's like, this is real. Like, we may have to move. And so we made that, moved the entire family, and that's a huge commitment. But really had a great experience. And quite frankly, I don't know that I would have been a great candidate or really had the experience that I have now coming into this role in Broken Arrow if I hadn't have gone outside the state, and gone and been a police chief. Charles Ramsey, who's been a police commissioner in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., and came up through the Chicago PD, and he's kind of like one of the fathers of that we think about with the Bill Brattons and all of that. But Charles Ramsey said in a podcast one time about police chiefs, there's people that want the job and there's people that want to do the job. Some people want it for the title. Some people want it because they want the prestige. None of us, no matter even at the chief level, are never going to get like super rich off of doing this job. But then there's those people that just want to do it. And what they want to do is they want to serve the department, the members of the department. They want to serve that community, and they want to create these and cultivate these conditions where people can thrive and flourish in the organization. And that's been my driving force with wanting to be a chief. And that was my driving force with wanting to get an experience that was separate from what I knew from Norman. And then, as I was in Weatherford, I had the opportunity really to be an assistant city manager after a few years as a police chief, but I stayed being the police chief. And the blessing in that for me was it showed me the path that I should follow, and it wasn't necessarily into city administration. Because once I got to do the dual role, I led the group from planning and development and from human resources, and I could do those things. And I still wanted to serve those directors and the members of those departments, but it wasn't the same level of passion for me. And so when I, the hard, again, reflection and these different moments of my life where I've paused to reflect of like, hey, God, what's my purpose? Was really, hey, your purpose is to be a police chief and not to be a city manager, assistant city manager, or whatever. And about that time, again, another sign, I see an opening for the Broken Arrow Police Department chief of police. And so, I had asked my wife not too long before that, like, hey, when all this is said and done, where do you see us being? If we could pick a place, where would it be? And she said, I want to be back in Oklahoma. And so, just the stars aligning, right? And Broken Arrow came with the reputation, the quality that's here, the quality of the community, the quality of the department. So it wasn't a hard sell, but even with that, like I'll tell you, and I'll continue to mention this because I'm still just blown away by it. I knew the reputation. I knew that we were going to have talent. I didn't know it was going to be as good as it is, and it has been fantastic. And I pinch myself every day that I get I'm humbled to be the one to be able to ask to lead this department and the incredible people that are here. So, yeah.
That's a good segue. I think you mentioned today in an email that you've been here for 30 days. What's been your impression about the department and then the employees here in your first 30 days?
Really just, what all we do that probably people don't see. We get daily summaries, as you guys are aware, and so we see the things that our officers are doing. We've highlighted some of that in the past. You guys, right before we came on, are talking about highlighting some of the things that we do. And we're highlighting these officers for doing these things, but it's an example of what our people are doing day in and day out. Our professional staff. We had an incident that we highlighted internally with our communication staff that worked really through a difficult, a canoe that capsized in the river and multiple agencies and things like that. And so, as that's been one of the things that's been really great. I mentioned the commitment, but really the commitment and the people that are here for the right reasons of being here. They're here because they grew up here. They want to serve here. They're from the area, but they are deeply committed to this community and to serving the people here. And so that's been some of those easy early impressions, but it just comes out in the way that we handle our business, quite frankly. The professionalism that we go about, the commitment to the values that we have in this organization. And that desire to the next part of that is that desire to, like, where else are we going to go? How far are we going to go? And then that desire to come together and to create that vision collectively, because I come in and I have some ideas, but really this vision comes from all of us. And so where are we going to go, and then what are the steps that we're going to take to get there. And I think that's the kind of buzz and excitement that you hear around, right? Is that that's what they're wanting, and they want to be on board, and they all want to be paddling in the same direction. And the talent's there, the capacity is there, and the potential is certainly there. And I think from what I've noticed in the first 30 days is any potential that we think we have, that potential is far greater than we can imagine, and that's what I'm super excited about.
Touching on the first 30 days, some of the things that you've talked about, being an employee, reporting to you, getting to see these things that you're talking about now have walked out these last 30 days has been pretty cool. The leadership team, and I talked about this in the last podcast, your commitment to everyone's a leader, but the leadership team grew the minute you got here because now we're sitting in these meetings that were probably smaller groups, a little bit more siloed, that now your commitment to professional staff, I'm seeing a mixture of professional staff managers, other employees that are sitting in that are having a voice that maybe didn't have a voice before or didn't feel like they did, but that leadership team immediately grew. That was pretty neat to see. And then also, I don't know how many times I've walked around the corner and I've just seen you talking to someone new, an employee stopping, and it's genuine. Yeah. And I know that's appreciated. I've had those conversations with people that have been a part of those one-on-one conversations with you, that you're interested, you want to know people's stories, you want to know what they do, what could be done better. And that's been cool to see as well as just your commitment to these little breakout sessions and just getting the information. And then the community piece. Your family's fully committed. And that's been neat to see too. You've had the opportunity to get involved in some community engagement here in those first 30 days, and your wife and your sons are at all of them, it seems like.
Right.
And that's been a good time too, getting to know them. And then your boys, they like to crack jokes. I think Ethan's been probably at the end of some of those jokes a few times.
This Ethan or his Ethan?
No, this Ethan here. Yeah. But I mean, all the things that you're talking about, I can go through if I were to sit down with someone and go give an example of Chief Arnold has done this. I've seen this, been a part of this conversation. Go talk to this person, they've seen it. So that's pretty neat to see. Just so everyone knows, these are the things that are getting walked out right now as an organization.
I think it's important too that, and I remind people of this, is that we can talk about it, and there's no question that I bring in some vision and some experience to talk about the things that we're going to do. But at the end of the day, we got to back it up. Mm-hmm. That's true when we're working with our community too, right? We can talk about all these things and these initiatives, but we got to follow through and back those things up. And so that's one of the things that I'm really deeply committed is hearing everybody's ideas, but also at the same time, I want them to hold me accountable, but we got to hold each other accountable too. At the end of the day, we're serving this greater purpose and we're serving this community. And so, I think that's one piece is hold me accountable, but I'm going to hold you accountable too, so.
Yeah, one thing that I kind of want to know more about is your leadership skills that you're trying to pass on, because in the first 30 days, you've really let us know about what you stand on and what kind of leadership qualities you want to pass on to people. Can you talk about your leadership skills and kind of where you come from in that capacity?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of it is natural, but it's certainly been honed through plenty of mistakes. Trust me, you don't get here without with a perfect track record. And so I've made plenty of mistakes, learned from those mistakes, and continue. And I tell people here, listen, there's nobody perfect. There's been one perfect person that's walked on this earth, and it's not me. And so I'm going to make mistakes, but we're going to learn from them and move forward. And I think, but one of those is, and Josh mentioned it, but it's authenticity, right? It's being genuine with people. It's also understanding purpose. Like at the end of the day, this is a people business. We get sometimes so caught up in the stuff, the minutia of budgets and equipment and stuff, that we forget that we're people. Our members are people, and then we're dealing with people, and those things are important. And that, at the end of the day, those are far more important than the stuff that's out there. And so I think keeping our eye on that, but then also that piece of like the innovation is really huge for me. And so challenging status quo. I mentioned and some other things that we've done, and just casually to you guys, I consider myself this positive disruptor. And what does that mean? It means that, I like to disrupt stuff, but I do it in a positive way. We've all seen and worked with those people that maybe are disruptors, or just not, they leave the positive piece out, right? But for me, it's like, how do we challenge the processes that we have? Where can we become more efficient? Where can we improve processes? Where do we build on the technology to help our people do their jobs better and to free up them to be able to do more things. And then nobody, all of our listeners and everybody can think of jobs that they've had where they ask themselves, like, why are we doing it this way? And I'm sure we do this in policing all the time, but I know it exists in other professions as well. That's just the way we've always done it. And it's always that kind of forward-looking, forward-thinking mindset of asking those questions, being curious about why we're doing these things. And this is the best way to do it. The other part, and Josh mentioned this, is this kind of everybody with this leadership mentality is that I really do think that I want to hear the voice from everyone. We're working on a beat alignment right now that came out through our matrix study. And, that was an internally driven, kind of thing that the product that we came up with came from our own staff members. But it was really, really important to me that we got that back in front of patrol, that we got that back in front of our communications professional staff to be able to kind of weigh in on that. They're the boots on the ground. And so that's, kind of those philosophies coming together of like, we're all in this. And their voice is vitally important to the success of our organization. And so provide those opportunities where we're getting those feedback. And where we're collectively talking about not my vision, but our vision, where we're talking about what our purpose is and what our values are, and that everybody's on board with that. And everybody's had a chance to speak into that.
What is your goal with the city as far as kind of putting BAPD even more on the map than it is? Because one thing you've said is you want Broken Arrow to be leading in the state as an agency. You've said before that we're one of the best, if not the best, agency in the state, which I think we should pride ourselves upon. Right. What can we do as an agency, and what can you do as our chief now to make us go to that direction, to be the lead agency?
Yeah, it's active involvement. It's active involvement with our partners, our stakeholders, but not just in the local level. It's across the state, across the region. And there's a certain obligation, and I've mentioned this, but we are the fourth largest municipal police department, and there's an obligation with a lot of our neighbors and again across the state that when we do things really well, and we do a lot of stuff really well, that we're sharing that we're helping our partners and our stakeholders, and I think those transcend into we're doing that to serve and help others even outside of our community, but it's putting us in that position. And I use this term, this kind of visual picture, but it's really important to me that when our people walk into something and they're wearing this uniform, they're wearing that patch, that they walk into anything that they walk into that involve other policing professionals or whatever, and they're proud to be where they're from. They're proud to work there. And that those people are in the corner of, hey, those guys are from BAPD. Hey, she's from BAPD, right? And so, like, where it becomes one of those things, because I think that sets a standard. That sets a standard and an expectation in their mind that if we are a leader, then we're going to go out and we're going to show it every day in everything that we do, not just in this area or that area, but we're going to take pride in every single thing, every contact that we have with the community member, everything that we do with a partner or stakeholder, every initiative that could be a statewide initiative or whatever, that when we do it, we're doing it with everything that we have. And it's really just honing in on that mindset that if we feel like we're the best, we're going to show it every day, but we're going to level up and maintain that standard, right? And so that's kind of the things that we talked about. Some things, kind of a future teaser, but is one of those catch lines that we're considering kind of in the department is setting the standard, right? Yep. We're going to be the ones that set the standard, and we're going to keep moving that bar further and further up.
I think that's powerful, and in the police world, because I shared that yesterday with our special response team. I talked about kind of what your expectations were when it came to being a leader in the state, and when you talk to other cops about what it means to put that uniform on specifically for the agency that you work for, I think we can all think of, as law enforcement professionals, probably a few agencies that they come to mind. Yeah. And you're like, oh, okay, that agency, when that person walks in wearing that uniform, man, that person's squared away. That means something. They know their stuff. They're on their game, and they're just the tip of the spear when it comes to law enforcement. And sharing that with 18 people yesterday that were cops, and to see the head nods and you kind of see like the emotion getting that, going, yeah, that's who we are. That's who we're going to be. That excites police officers. And so I think that's really powerful, to hear you go back into that again. And I think the law enforcement community, maybe outside of that, people just in a professional setting, everyone strives to be that tip of the spear. And we have a tremendous opportunity to do that here.
Well, the other thing, and as you said that, and I haven't used this analogy yet, but as you said it comes to mind, and we all and I'm sure our listeners have heard kind of this analogy of with football teams, right? You're playing for the name on the front of the jersey and on the back of the jersey. And for us, it's the same thing. Like every day we're going out, hey, I'm playing for that patch and that badge that's on this jersey, for the people that I work alongside and that I represent. I'm playing for the name that's on mine, that's my own name, my family name. So I'm playing for the reputation of both of those things.
I like that.
And so I think that's the big piece of that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of opportunity to get to know you even more. I mean, I'm sure we'll have you back again for future podcasts. But is there anything else that you want the public, those listeners, to know about you? Maybe even any future goals for our department? Something that you're really wanting to try and succeed in this year?
Yeah, well, one is we're really building out how we're telling our story. We're working on some things right now, the initiatives with other city departments too, to really kind of turn some of our reporting into where people can look and they can gauge exactly what's going on, what we're doing, and how does that compare. So working on it, we have the ability to do it, but really building out the capacity that how we're reporting our stats and building that transparency with our community, with our council members, with our city administration. And one of the exciting things in the meetings that I've had is that I think we have the ability to start that direction and bring the other departments on board too, that we really change some of the dynamic of the entire city organization by pushing those things. And so that's one of the things that I think we're working on. And the rest is really, we are, Josh mentioned the listening sessions that we're having right now with all of our employees, and that's gonna transcend into a look at our mission, our vision, but also developing a strategic plan. And that's one of the big ticket, I know, even coming here. That was an expectation from Mr. Spurgeon. That's been an expectation from our own members, quite frankly, of that, hey, where are we going and how we're going to get there? And so it's really developing that. And that's where my focus is right now. But again, all that's is going to come back through our members and through that feedback so that they have a chance to weigh in. It's not me coming down from the corner office and saying, hey, here's our strategic plan, Ethan, and go forth and conquer on your part of it. But it's going to have a chance for everybody to weigh in on that. And so that's really where my focus is now. The other things that we're doing, we're already doing, we've got to be better at telling our story and letting people know. This is one of the things that you guys are doing, right? It's really, I've seen even before I got here, but really you guys stepping up the game of being able to tell our story. And so people can see these are all the things that we do, not just what you see maybe on the news or this or that, but this is captures. And right now we're even just getting a small piece of that, but we get to see it every day because we work with incredible people. Now we want the world to see the incredible people that we get the pleasure of working with every day.
Yeah, one thing I love about your background is you are, like Josh said, an undergrad in PR. And so you have that ability to want to be transparent and to be able to connect with the community in that capacity. So I know that a lot of people have seen you these last 30 days, but you're going to be a community guy. You're going to be out there doing stuff and trying to connect with every citizen.
Right. I know coming up this next week, and I know the city is actually planning this, but we have a Meet the Chief at Handmade. We're working on an event as well, another Coffee with a Cop that's coming up, and so there's going to be plenty of those opportunities, and then just out and around, and I'm a member of this community, and I'm going to continue to push that. I'm continue to explore new places to eat, new places to hang out, new places for our family to go, and so you won't always see me in this uniform, but we're going to be. That's important for us, and I'm glad you mentioned earlier about my family. But we are the type that we're all in. You don't pick up your entire family and move across state and move to a different state unless you're willing to be all in. And so before I got here, I knew, and some of that is because, quite frankly, what we're doing as a city, and I had this conversation with Mr. Spurgeon last night. The excitement that I see that starts with him at the top of the organization, that I see among our council members and our mayor, members of the community, our partners and stakeholders. There's a buzz in Broken Arrow, and then and now it's our turn to really start pushing and doing our part to really kind of continue that. And I think so. It's contagious, and I'm. Beyond just the police department, I'm just excited to live in Broken Arrow, quite frankly, because this is a cool place to be. So, yeah.
Well, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that we want to ask you, Chief, or you want to mention before we close it out?
There's just more to come. I mean, I'm telling you, right? I will say the one catchphrase that I've used in the beginning. I'm gonna dust it off, but and I know Josh will like this, but it's like, all gas and no brake, right? And that's really what I feel like right now, and I don't get tired from it because it's just so exciting. I think if it wasn't so exciting, I don't know that I could maintain the pace that I have in the first 30 days. But I don't see myself slowing down because that's really that fulfills me. It gives me the energy, the people that are here, the people that I know we're serving in our community, and so that's been my mentality: is all gas and no brake, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, and that energy, as you were going through the process to be selected for this position. Obviously, I wasn't involved. Other people within the organization weren't involved in that, but we saw you guys as you came through, you and the other applicants. Yeah. And there was this one individual that stuck out over and over again about the energy, but the knowledge, the research you had done, the diversity in your background. And so as Mr. Spurgeon dwindled those down, as we're walking through the halls, myself, other captains, majors, we're like, man, there's just one guy that he seems to. And so, I mean, that just seems to be who you are. And we're very excited about it. I think you touched on it, the whole community, the police department. We're on the cusp of some bigger things that are coming. Mm-hmm. Amphitheater's coming. There's development that's happening in the city, but that also includes with the police department. And we're just getting ready to launch. And I do like the gas and no brake. That's,
It's a great time to be here. I mean, it's a great time to be the new chief in Broken Arrow.
Yeah. Did I mention we're hiring?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
It is a great time to be here.
It is a great time to be here. I got to plug that, right? Yeah. No, it's absolutely a great time to be here. Who wouldn't want to be here right now? So, yeah.
Well, we appreciate you being here in the studio and taking the time to talk to us and talk to the listeners about yourself. And again, there's more to come, more conversations with you. So for those watching today, we appreciate you taking time to listen to us. And as we always do when we conclude these podcasts, we want to remind you to stay safe and stay connected.